Hello everyone, I'm the Viking General and this video is about the much requested army composition in Shogun 2. I'm having some trouble with the siege defense video, so that will come a bit later. Also, I hope this video isn't too long, but army composition can't be compressed into 2 or even 4 minutes without leaving out large parts. Furthermore, while I will explain some things about the units I talk about, it will help if you watch the short video guides about the units. Anyway, let's begin. For those of you who just want a standard army composition without thinking too much about it, I'll make it easy. This is the standard army I would recommend to the average player. Of course, it's headed by a general, preferably skilled in stand and fight. Then 3 Yari cavalry. This amount should allow you to both fight off the enemy cavalry and still be of substantial threat to the enemy afterwards. Then 4 Naginata samurai to ward off enemy cavalry and act as a shock absorber for enemy charges and enemy missile fire. The 6 katana samurai will be your main killers in melee. After the Naginata samurai have engaged, charge in the katana samurai. Finally, there are 6 bow samurai, which can be upgraded to bow warrior monks if your funds allow it. Your archers are there to be able to threaten the enemy from range, kill the enemy archers, and to take down high priority targets. Alright, now we got that out of the way, we can talk more in depth about army composition. Army composition is a lot more nuanced than just throwing together a bunch of units that function well. In a campaign, you frequently find yourself in situations where you aren't able to churn out your perfect army. You might lack the funds, the required buildings or arts, or just simply time. On top of that, you might have a certain playstyle you prefer. There are clan variants and clan unique units, and not every army might have the same task. So how do we tackle this problem? Well, let's first start by looking at your preferred playstyle. We might have the perfect army for the situation, but if you aren't comfortable with it, it'll be less effective. There are a ton of different playstyles, but for simplicity's sake, I will arrange them on a scale, from very defensive to very aggressive. An aggressive playstyle focuses on assaulting the enemy, hoping to end the battle quickly and decisively. They will generally move their units a lot. A defensive playstyle focuses on defending their position, withstanding the enemy assault, breaking their momentum, and grind them down. They will generally be stationary. A balanced playstyle strives to find a middle ground, attacking and defending when they think that strategy will be most advantageous at that time. These are broad playstyles, and being an aggressive player doesn't mean you will never defend properly and vice versa. It's more of what you prefer to do. For example, I would fall into the aggressive playstyle since I like to attack and I don't feel comfortable defending. So what influence does your playstyle have on your army composition? Well, it mainly determines the ratio of missile units versus melee units. Missile troops shine in prolonged combat, where they can fire all their ammunition, and in area denial, which are both favored by a defensive playstyle. Mass infantry and cavalry units shine at breaking through enemy lines and at dispatching their foes as fast as possible, which are favored by an aggressive playstyle. So I would recommend a very defensive player to take up to 10 missile units, whereas I would recommend a very aggressive player to only take 2 missile units. I also recommend never taking more missile units than other units, since it will be difficult to properly defend your missile units otherwise. Furthermore, I would always bring at least 2 missile units, since you can use them for the purpose of probing the enemy or as bait. As for which type of missile unit, if you have the funds, time, buildings and art for it, I would recommend using the highest tier possible. Luckily, it's always possible to recruit bow Ashigaru, but every upgraded version is better than the previous one, except in some niche cases. Finally, if you want this army to assault castles, you want to take more archer units. Personally, I recommend at least 6 archer units if you want to besiege a castle, since they can do a lot of damage without fear of retribution. Alright, now we have determined how many missile troops we want to take. Next up is cavalry. I would recommend to always, if possible, have 20 to 30% of your melee units be cavalry units, depending on your micromanagement skill and your playstyle. Cavalry in Shogun 2 are very strong, yes, but they are also fragile, so they require a bit of babysitting. If you bring too much, you might find yourself lacking the micromanagement skill to use them safely and effectively, especially since the AI is very gung-ho on sending anti-cavalry units after your cavalry. In general, I would recommend bringing only Yari cavalry, or light cavalry if Yari cavalry is unavailable. If you bring at least 4 cavalry units, you could bring a unit of katana cavalry if you have the buildings for it as well. They require a bit less micromanagement and are a bit more resilient when fighting longer battles. Having a unit that requires less micromanagement frees up your mental capacity for the other cavalry units. Of course, if you want to mainly use the army for sieging, then I wouldn't bring any cavalry. The niche cases where cavalry is useful in an offensive siege are not worth it compared to either more melee infantry or more archers. Now we come to the melee infantry. In my opinion, this is the most debatable part of army composition. It's best if we want to look at what properties we want this part of the army to have, which are also partially determined by your playstyle. But first, independent of playstyle, we always want to have some anti-cavalry units. These will protect the other units from enemy cavalry charges. Since the AI can both try to flank and charge straight through through the middle, we want this anti-cavalry property to be spread across the melee infantry line. Units that can fulfill this role are Yari Ashigaru, Yari Samurai, Naginata Samurai, and Naginata Warrior Monks. In a defensive styled army, we mainly want melee units that can hold the line for as long as possible. Units that fulfill this role are Yari Ashigaru, Naginata Samurai, Yari Samurai, and to a lesser extent Naginata Warrior Monks. These monks will hold the line for some time, but they will also lose a lot of men in the process. In an aggressive styled army, we want melee units that can kill the enemy as fast as possible. Units that fulfill this role are Katana Samurai, Nodachi Samurai, and Naginata Warrior Monks. We also want units that are able to deal with the enemy archers, which is fulfilled by Naginata Samurai and Yari Samurai. Naginata Samurai will simply soak missile fire, while Yari Samurai can try to actively disrupt enemy missile units. However, even a defensive styled army will have some use for melee killing power. A couple of these units will help greatly in grinding down the enemy army. On the other side, an aggressive styled army can have some use for Yari Ashigaru units, as cheap anti-cavalry units, sacrificial units, or as defensive units when the army is forced into a defense. Hopefully with these roles you can get an idea of what kind of army you can build with what you have at your disposal. If you want a defensive style army but don't have Naginata Samurai available, you can simply use Yari Ashigaru. Or if you normally want to use Naginata Warrior Monks but you can't recruit those where you need them, maybe use some Nodachi Samurai. In any case, if possible, I would recommend having at least a few Naginata Samurai in your army, and as weird as it may sound, 1 Yari Samurai in a defensive styled army and 2 Yari Samurai in an aggressive styled army. Fill in the rest of the slots with the units you have available which fit the role you want them to have. Finally, there is a nuance of clan variants and clan unique units. While these can change the specific units used in your army, they don't really change the general principle, which is to recruit units to fulfill a role. However, it's true that the Takeda clan will favor a more aggressive styled army, since they will generally want to use cavalry. The Chosokabe will favor a more defensive styled army, since they will generally want to use more archers. If you find yourself playing a clan which favors your opposing style, you don't need to completely flip sides. You can simply shift a little bit. If you're an aggressive player playing Chosokabe, take a few more archers with you. If you're a defensive player trying to Takeda clan, take less archers and a bit more cavalry into your armies. And if you're playing Oda and you want to be a bit more aggressive, just use more Ashigaru armies. Thank you for wait, before you click off, there is something I want to say. Honestly, I want to thank you all for your support. Reaching 1,000, let alone 2,000 subscribers has been inconceivable when I started this channel, and it really means a lot to me. To celebrate this, I want to start weekly streams on Fridays. The streams will be on YouTube, so all the content will remain on a single platform. Further details will follow on a later date, since I need to work out the specifics, but the first stream will be the start of a challenge campaign in which I will not recruit any units. Also, I guess it's a face reveal. Although my webcam isn't that... Wait, why did they leave this in the script again? Well, I hope to see you there watching.